Welcome to Making of the Western Mind. We are delighted to have you with us for this series of videos that will help you walk through the whole of the Western tradition. We are at the Institute for the Study of Western Civilization. There is our Institute headquarters, and I am William Fredlund, the director of the Institute for the Study of Western Civilization in Cupertino, California. And we invite you to join us for these next episodes in order to study the Western tradition, to learn what it is, to learn where it came from, and to think about whether or not the Western mind is something distinct. Is the Western mind different than any other mind? Is the Western mind something that has created the Western tradition with great figures such as Aristotle, Augustine, Dante? Is it different than other traditions, other intellectual traditions? Is it different than an ancient Chinese tradition or Indian? And we propose with these episodes to lead you through that story and let you decide yourself, is there something distinct about the Western mind and how did it come to be? Now, where do we go for an answer? Well, one of the key things is the evolution of the idea of the East and the parallel evolution of the idea of the West. So the very reality of the West and the Western mind and the Western tradition is paired with the recognition in Paris and London and Rome of something called the East. What is it? Where is it? And that's part of the story. Now, when you go searching for the East, this wonderful little book will help you. This is What is the West by Philippe Némon, a great French philosopher who has written this beautiful little book, about 100 pages. Nothing could be better. If you're interested in owning it, it's easily available in print. Amazon has it. And it'll help you think about what is the West. What is it? Where did it come from? Now, when you go looking for the West, what is the West, make sure you don't get mixed up with how the West was won. This is a different West. So when we go looking for what is the West and where did it come from, it's not the world of Gregory Peck and Jimmy Stewart and Debbie Reynolds and Rick Nelson. This is a different West. This is the American West, how the West was won. And what we want to talk about is the East and the West. Where did we discover? Where did it come from? How did we find out such a thing as the West? Well, it's part of the discovery of the East. So insofar as Europe came to an awareness of the East and began to talk about it and think about it, it could then evolve another matching idea of the West. So the time and place for all of this discovery is when the West discovers China, especially in the 18th century, and they begin making things that are Chinese, they begin painting paintings that have Chinese themes, and they begin importing China. They import this pot to Europe, to Paris. And so by 1800, it's easy for people in London and Paris and Rome to talk about the East and the West. So the evolution of the term the West is paired with evolution of the term of the East. Now, if we want to talk about the origins of the Western tradition, then we need to compare it to, I'll put this on the screen, the other ancient civilizations. So if we look at 3000 BC, in the Old World, we can find about 5 major civilizations emerging. So there's the ancient Chinese civilization, the ancient Indian civilization, the ancient Mesopotamian, meaning the Tigris and the Euphrates, present-day Iran and Iraq, and the ancient Egyptian civilization. So you have 4. And then out on the edge, there's Europe. And if you see this map, you can already intuit that the European civilization, just as ancient as Egyptian, Chinese, 3000 BC, is going to live on multiple locations. So you can see Troy, ancient Troy on the Asian Minor, present-day Turkey, or you can look across the Aegean Sea and you can see some of the homelands in ancient Greece. And then soon, this intellectual tradition is going to move to Italy across the Mediterranean, and therefore now the ancient European tradition is going to have originated in 2 places, and then soon it's going to move north, it's going to move into France and Spain. And so in other words, if we look at this map right here, and we think about what the ancient civilizations were, we see that the ancient Chinese has a location specific to its river valley, the ancient Indus has its river valley, the ancient Mesopotamian has Tigris and Euphrates, and Egypt has an Nile. But the European tradition, the Western tradition, does not. It has multiple sources and multiple locations. And if you think about the Western tradition, just for a moment, as if it's a suspension bridge. In other words, versus a unity, ancient Chinese, unity, ancient Indian, the ancient Western civilization, the ancient European, is originating in multiple places. And so it's a tradition in tension. And therefore, if we think about a suspension bridge, we ask, okay, what are the pillars? What are the 2 pillars of the suspension bridge? Well, one is ancient Greece. So this pillar, ancient Greece, and if we think of names, Troy, Achilles, or Agamemnon, or in the Golden Age, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, those are the names that come from the western pillar of this suspension bridge. Now, what about the eastern pillar? What is that? Well, it's ancient Israel. It's ancient Israel across the Mediterranean. So you have these 2 different cultures, one in the northeast corner, another one in the southeast corner, and they're going to come together sometime, somewhere, somehow. They're going to come together and they're going to create a new tradition, a cultural tradition, but it's always in tension because it has multiple sources. Now, where does that linkage take place? Rome. So there you have almost the history of the first 2,000 years of the Western tradition. The origins in Greece, the origins in ancient Israel, and in Rome. These 2 cultures start to come together and create something new. And the generation that you can see that is clearly the one that consciously is bringing together the Greeks and the ancient Jews is the generation of Augustine, Ambrose, and Jerome. So around 400 AD, in Rome and Milan and other cities around the Roman Empire, this generation is going to consciously talk about and think about the Western tradition, and it will always be a tradition with tension because the Greek origins and the ancient Israel origins are completely different. They have total different content. So, what did the ancient Greeks bring to us? Well, the most important thing is a philosophical idea. Here it is, the cosmos versus the chaos. The idea, first, the very word cosmos means order, and the idea that the universe has an order built into it is an ancient Greek idea. The man who begins to use that word cosmos is Pythagoras, a Greek philosopher who lived on the island of Sicily. And that word, cosmos, meaning order, is the key Greek idea. There will be many different people who will talk about it. But the important thing is that the Greeks give us, the Western tradition, a clear idea that the universe is in order. It's built in order. It's orderly in its structure. So if we just think of a man like Euclid, who was a philosopher who invented geometry, wrote the book on geometry, the elements, he's going to give the whole of the Western tradition a clear idea that the universe is so unitary, that you can use geometry to measure the whole of the globe. And then some of his students are going to take these ideas of geometry, and they're going to expand it, and they're going to measure the whole globe. They're going to measure the globe in Egypt in 100 AD. And they're not too far off. Ptolemy's pretty close. Columbus is going to carry Ptolemy's book with him when he goes on his trip in 1492. So the Greek pillar of the suspension bridge gives all of us the idea of order. The universe is in order, everything. Now, what about the other side? What did the Jews give us? What did ancient Israel give it? There's our map. There's Abraham and Sarah coming out of the land of Ur, and they're called to come to the ancient land of Israel. They'll come, and then their successor, Moses, will lead his people out of Egypt in the Exodus, and on the great Mount Sinai, he will receive the Ten Commandments. And what do the Jews give us? A moral clarity, a moral order, an idea that there's one God, and that one God creates everything, holds everything together, unifies everything, and calls on us to live a certain kind of life. So from the Greeks, we get a philosophical idea that everything is in order, and from the Jews, we get an idea that there is a moral order, that the moral order is absolutely clear. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not take any other God in name, that thou shalt not set any other God before me. So therefore there's one God. That one God has a personal relationship to you, and he's going to give to you a moral order. So now you have, from the northeast corner, ideas of Greek order, philosophical order, and from the southeast corner, moral order, and then that generation in Rome, both the Greeks and the Jews have come to Rome, but in Rome, those men, Augustine, Ambrose, Jerome, and others like them around the year 400, they're going to take those ideas and they're going to consciously bring them together. They're going to think about it. Here are all three of them in their studies. That's a painting by Italian painter Carpaccio of Augustine in his study. There's Jerome in his study working in Jerusalem on the translation of the Bible into Latin, which will be the key document that all the Middle Ages will use. And there's Ambrose in Milan creating the Latin Mass, the Roman Catholic Mass, the celebration of the Lord's Supper that everyone will use for 1,000 years, and then with the Reformation there'll be variations. But the important thing is, here in this wonderful painting by Raphael that's in the Vatican, the School of Athens, all those Athenian scholars are on that step, Socrates, Plato, and over in the corner there's Augustine, Jerome, and Ambrose, and together they merge the Greek philosophical idea of an orderly universe created by an orderly divine power to the God of the Jews and the Christians. And so in this brilliant intellectual effort in 300 and 400 AD, these men in Italy create and bring together what is the core of the Western tradition. So by 400, it's there. Now, it will evolve 1,500 more years to this day, but the key is that set of pieces. And so the Western tradition is there from 400 on, but we begin to talk about it in the 18th century. Then by the 20th century, we have books on the Western tradition, Western civilization. Now we have books on the decline of the Western tradition, but that's the core. And so in our next episode, we'll go on to more about Israel and more about Greece.